Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. Coming to you from our studios in Jupiter, Florida. Not bragging, it's just a nice place to be this time of year. And this show brought to you, as always, by Casa de Campo, our friends in the Dominican Republic. I was there 2 weeks ago playing Teeth of the Dog. That's the Pete Dye golf course, one of four. It's incredible. Family vacay, if you're planning one, go to casadecampo.com. All right. Our next guest is an old friend, and because of me, I haven't caught up with Reid Gettys in a long, long time, but we were just talking before he came on the show, and it's great to catch up. Reid, first off, great to see you, my friend. You and I go way back, Big 12 basketball, ESPN basketball, and, man, it is just great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm not as great as you. You're like, I'm calling in from Jupiter, Florida. I'm like, yeah, you're rubbing it in. I'm in my cubicle in Houston, still slaving away.
Well, I'm in the golf business, Reid, so all the
Yeah.
golfers are down here. Not that I'm a golfer, but I like to hang with them.
Yeah, I know better than that. I'm in the lawyer business, so unfortunately, I'm hanging out with a bunch of lawyers down at the courthouse.
Yeah, I have to admit that sounds a little boring, but that's okay. How is the golf game, by the way? Before we talk hoops, I mean, we do tend to talk golf on this show. Come on now, you got to have been playing some golf, right?
Yeah, I had this idea that I was gonna leave an outside law firm. I was gonna go in-house to ExxonMobil, and man, I was gonna play a ton of golf. Well, I'm playing about once a month, which is
Oh,
just yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna go play Thursday, and the goal for me right now is if I take enough ibuprofen, if I stretch enough, the round of golf, I come in and Lisa goes, she doesn't ask how you play. She goes, okay, what's hurting? Like only a couple of things today, so not very good. I need your help. I need to come hang out with you.
well, I will tell you this. You and Tiger have a lot in common. He gets sore after he plays, too. So you and
We
Tiger
do,
Woods have a
yeah.
lot in common.
Yeah, things nobody ever said ever.
Well, I'm trying to make you feel good. All right, let's talk some hoops. And listen, yesterday it really wasn't a surprise. Hubert Davis steps down at UNC. And I think the new athletic director, president, wanted some changes on the staff. And you know how that goes down. And Reid, you and I have been around a long time. We know how great the North Carolina tradition is. Is that job still as good as it used to be?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. You look at the names and look, I don't know that um, the very first list, people just throw names out there. You don't know if any of them are realistic. But I remember when Rick Pitino's name started getting thrown around, and you're like, oh, that's not realistic. So would Tommy Floyd leave Arizona?
Maybe.
If I'm North Carolina, that might be the second call after Brad
Wow.
Stevens says no, I'm not leaving the NBA. That might be the second phone call I make. But you start looking at the names they're talking about. The answer is yes, and
Mm.
it's nice of you. You're as always. You're being very gracious to say Hubert Davis stepped down. From what I understand, the guys funding the NIL said, "Hey, a tap on the shoulder,"
Yeah.
which is very unlike North Carolina, right? And that's the problem when you bring back a beloved son,
Mm.
returning somebody, mother picks up the phone and calls and says, come home and come coach. Well, it's really great all the way up until when it's not great.
Right.
And then it becomes really awkward. But the answer is yes. In this day and age of NIL and what in the team you can put together, I mean, look what A&M did with about 2 months. They put together a team that ends up
Yeah.
fourth in the SEC, and goes and wins a game. What Miller's done at Texas, and you can turn it around immediately. Now they need to hire somebody sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
They need to get somebody hired, and the names they're throwing around, those guys are still playing and still coaching.
Yeah. Some pretty big names. The other guy I wanted to ask you about, and you and I go way back. Of course, you and I go so far back. Roy Williams was the coach of Kansas.
Yeah, that's right.
Then he hands off to Bill Self, and of course, what Bill has done is amazing. Bill's had some health issues, Reid. The heart and that sort of thing. That's pretty serious stuff. Although I think he looks good. I mean, he looks like he's lost weight, etc. You think Bill returns to KU?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine he wouldn't, but golly, he looked tired this year, didn't
He
he?
did. He did.
And look, he would never admit it. And I haven't talked to Bill, and I haven't talked to anyone on the staff. But after the circus show they had this year and all the drama, they get beat. Bill's as competitive as any human being. So I don't want to suggest he's not. But
Right.
part of him had to say, Jeez, I'm glad this one's over. Right.
Yeah.
So after he takes some time off, I think he'll be back. It's hard to imagine that he wouldn't be. But boy, the dynamics have changed in the Big 12, haven't they? You-
Oh,
I mean, how many times did you and I sit in studio and you'd say, "Well, who's the favorite?" Well, for the 14th year in a row, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to pick Kansas.
yeah. I mean, what a league! What a league! With the addition of Arizona, Houston, I mean, it's dynamic, and
Yeah,
we're going to get around to those guys. But I wanted to ask you this because obviously you played for Guy Lewis, one of the best in the business, and Coach Lewis was an older man when he retired. And I'm looking at Rick Pitino, is 73. Reid. Tom Izzo, 71. Rick Barnes, you and I had so many great conversations with Rick Barnes
yeah.
over the years. He's 71. Kelvin is 70, soon to be 71. I mean, Coach Cal is 67. What is it about these older coaches? I mean, obviously they know what they're doing,
Yeah.
but I'm amazed at their energy and the passion. I mean, the game has changed dramatically, and yet these guys are still very, very successful.
It's interesting because when the NIL deal, is so out of control and everything's
Yes.
out of whack and it's not sustainable, you almost saw this almost like a inflection point, right? Some of the older coaches, Jay Wright, some of the other guys like even in football, you go to Saban and the guys that
Yes.
go, I'm out, I'm not doing this. And then yet you see, you run through the list of guys, names you just did, and those guys are thriving, right?
Yeah.
Houston is we forever. We've done more with less. We've taken guys after Texas chooses their guys, after Kansas takes their guys, and we've always done more with less. And now all of a sudden, NIL comes in, and we're not competing. We're not getting kids because of money, but it allows us to at least level out the playing field. And now suddenly, we brought in the number one recruiting class in the country
Amazing.
with a coach as old as Kelvin and as limited financially as we are. It's just phenomenal. It is amazing for me to watch because every coach will say it's broken, it's messed up, it's not sustainable, and then here's all these 70-plus-year-old guys
Yeah.
thriving in the system.
I love it. I really do. Not that I'm getting old or anything,
No,
but
no. I
you
noticed
know, we,
you are quick to throw out ages, and you left yours out of there.
I mean, we go so far back with these guys. We knew them when they were like 30.
Yeah, I
And
know.
anyway, I do
TJ
want to ask.
Oberholzer was a baby assistant when we first met him,
I
right?
know. I
Hey,
remember. Yeah.
that's another name to watch for North Carolina.
Mm,
Holy cow, can that dude coach? And
wow.
and look, hey, I'm telling you, Kelvin Sampson has changed the Big 12.
Mm,
And what he brought back from the NBA and his defensive schemes, you look at the young coaches that are being successful in the Big 12, Texas Tech, Iowa State,
yes.
Arizona, and all three of those teams defend exactly like we do. I
Mm,
mean, exactly. They're going to do the hard blitz on the ball screen, the weak side rotations, the double down on the post. I mean, literally, it's like looking in a mirror. And now there's four teams doing it, and all four of those teams, were top 10 teams, barring injuries. So it's phenomenal. But TJ also has the offensive chops. And
right.
I'm telling you, I would not be surprised to see him end up with the
Wow.
UNC job.
Wow. That's interesting. Had not heard that name because there were the top 10 were like the who's who of coaching, right?
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. All right, I got to ask you about your alma mater, Houston, because Kelvin has done an amazing job. And I remember back in the day. I mean, this wasn't too long ago. Reid, what, 20 years ago? I mean, Houston was off the radar screen. I
Oh,
mean, they.
oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they were
People
in.
are like, it's come so far. I used to get the question, do you think we'll ever get back to the NCAA tournament? Now,
My
now
goodness.
people, now the first question people ask me, do you think we'll get back to the Final Four? And I'm like, holy cow.
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
amazing what he's done.
it's amazing. Seven straight Sweet 16s, and it should have been eight, but for a half court shot from Michigan in 2018 or whenever it was.
Crazy.
But literally competing in rarefied air. I mean,
Mm,
it's been amazing to me to watch and how he's done it. But then the change of the perception of the program.
Yeah.
Now it's now Houston rolls off people's tongues like we used to, Kansas and Kentucky and North Carolina and
Like
Duke
when you
and
played. I mean, that's the
yeah,
same thing.
but it's even beyond that because Coach Lewis did a great job of putting together a team, and part of it's because you didn't have the transfer portal and all that.
Right.
But
Right.
but Coach Lewis took a team to two Final Fours, and he had Elvin Hayes and Don Chaney in both of them. Then we went to three Final Fours, and Coach Lewis had Drexler, Olajuwon, Mishaw, Michael Young,
Pretty
but
good.
it was the same core.
Right.
Think about what Kelvin has done year in and year out. And up until this year, we've stayed old, and so he's replacing three and four guys every year in the sustained success.
Mm.
I should never admit it as a trial attorney and a broadcaster, but I run out of adjectives. I mean, I really run out of a way to, to fully be present in the moment and appreciate what he's done.
Yeah, I harken back those days at Oklahoma, and
Yep.
we really appreciate what he did then. And obviously he was fighting Kansas, and Texas was great at the time, et cetera. Then he went to Indiana. Whatever happened there happened. Then he goes to the NBA, and you kind of forget about him, right?
Yeah.
And then
Well,
he gets thrown the bone. Come back to Houston. Wow,
Well, we we
wow.
we were about 1 week away from not getting him because he was on the staff with the Bucks, and then he was on the
Yeah,
staff with the Rockets. I'm telling you, within 2 weeks of us naming him as the head coach, McHale gets fired, and the Rockets are reaching back out to him.
no
And
kidding.
and I mean, we were this close. I remember the athletic director called me, and not that I'm, anyone needs to run anything by me, but he knew that I knew Kelvin and I'd been friends with him, and he called and he said, "Hey, can I run a name by you?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm thinking about reaching out and hiring Kelvin Sampson,"
Wow.
and that's what I said too. I said, "Really?" He goes, with all the issues at Indiana, and think about how stupid that is in today's day of NIL. You're going to worry anyway. That's another conversation.
That
But
is an amazing story. It really is.
but he calls me and he says, what do you think? And I said, here's what I think. I think you ought to get in your car right now. You ought to drive to wherever his house is, and you ought to park in front of it and not leave until you get it done. I said that is the biggest no brainer. And Doug, uh, calling games his first year, my son Stuart is our stats guy, talent stats guy. So he's sitting down at the table with us. We counted the crowd. I'm not exaggerating. 56 people at a game. That's where the program was when he came in. Is that
Good
is
gracious.
that is that unbelievable?
It was a dead
56
program.
people.
It
It,
was a
it was
dead
dead,
program. Yeah.
completely dead. No facilities. No, I mean it was unbelievable.
The arena is great now and the excitement level. And Reid, here's who I like. I've picked Arizona from way back. And because I watched with great intensity, Arizona wins at Houston. If you
Oh,
remember that game. And
no, I was
Arizona's
I
best
was
player,
there.
the freshman was sitting out for Arizona. He was injured. And it was high intensity. It goes down to the final minutes. And I said, now, Arizona, if they can do that without their best player against Houston with that environment, I said, that's my team.
Yeah, let me
They,
tell you something.
they
It
impressed me.
wasn't it wasn't as close as the score either, because
Wow.
Koa Pete's not playing, and we got
Yes.
manhandled. And let me just tell you, uh, uh, um, best team doesn't always win this thing. Arizona's the best team,
Yes.
and there's no doubt about that. Can we beat them? I think so. We haven't done. We've had two chances and we haven't done it. But we'll have to play our best. But what Tommy Lloyd has put together, a size, aggressiveness,
Oh,
defensive, their backcourt, Burries and Jaden Bradley. They've got a defensive stopper. They've got a banger. I'm telling you, that team is they are exceptionally well coached and loaded with talent. That's the best team in the country.
yeah. Pre-conference, they came to Birmingham to play Alabama. Alabama plays one game a year in Birmingham, and Alabama led by 1 point at halftime. And it was like, oh, that was a good half. And then the second half, oh my goodness, Arizona blew the doors off of the Crimson Tide. And I was bewildered. I was like, whoa. I just saw a great basketball team there in the second half.
Well, they defend,
Yes.
and they're tough, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. They're big. They got a rim protector that's mobile and plays aggressive. And then you add Koa Pete. I'm just telling you that I have all but 2 games out of the year. I've loved watching that team play.
Yeah, they're my pick. Now, as you say, you never know. Sometimes the best team doesn't win. It's a one and done. It's crazy shots. We saw the championship game a year ago when Houston couldn't get a shot off there in the end and Florida wins. So you just, I
Come
guess
on,
that's why we
man.
love it.
Why you got to go there? Why didn't you go to? Why didn't you go to? We saw Iowa center hit a step back three, and Florida
Uh,
couldn't get a shot off
uh,
to get into the Sweet 16. Why didn't you go there? Why do we go to the U of H? Can't get a shot off in the national championship game.
because I've already forgotten about that Iowa game. You had to bring it up.
Somebody said, "Were you watching?" I said, "I was running around the house, flapping my arms. I don't even know what a Hawkeye does, but I was yelling, Hawks, Hawks!"
Uh, I just want to know how a 6'10" kid from Europe, number one, nobody's on him in the corner, and then he hits it like I'm the best 3-point shooter in the country. What the
It's
heck?
fun. All I could think about it was, "You're so open for a reason. Don't shoot." Right? I mean, the guy guarding him was literally underneath the basket protecting the rim. I
It
mean,
was
could not
crazy.
have been. Yeah,
Uh,
it's like if you find yourself that open, there's a reason.
hey, lastly, before I let you go, listen, the ratings for NCAA basketball are way up.
Yeah.
And it always happens at March Madness. And obviously now you can watch the tournament on your iPhone, your iPad. You can watch it anywhere. But it is dwarfing the NBA ratings, Reid. And I have friends who are like, hey, I love the NBA. I'm like, seriously? I'm
Yeah,
just
I'm
not
with
into
you.
I mean, why is March Madness so popular now? Because the game has changed so dramatically. It's pay for play. Players are bouncing from team to team. But man, it seems like it's more popular than ever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never been an NBA game, and I call a lot of games with the Rockets radio guy, and he's just a diehard NBA guy, and I'm
Sure.
always like, why? I mean, I don't get it, and it's interesting, and I don't know whether you fall in the camp of it's fun to have one or two dominant teams that are headed towards each other.
Mm,
But give me this year where you've got 12 teams that
yeah.
legitimately could win this thing. I
Yeah.
mean, you could take add in the fact, excluding Florida, unexpectedly getting knocked out. But you could make an argument for almost every team in the Sweet 16, and
Oh,
you and,
yeah.
and you'd go, oh, okay, I believe that. Let me tell you something. If you want an upset pick Texas over Purdue,
Ooh.
because I'm telling you, Texas has got it going. I mean,
Yes.
they don't even resemble who they were in, I started to say in November, maybe in early February. I mean, they've clicked and they've got the pieces. And, it's funny. Everyone's talking about, oh, Cinderella, that poor little Texas program. Like,
Yeah, right.
okay, when you've got a budget of 20 billion, I don't think you're Cinderella. Um, but
No
but I,
kidding.
I love the fact that there are so many teams that can win it. To me, that's really fun. And then you rattled off a list of the coaches that are left, and
Oh,
you and I talk so much about coaches and who we like, and you end up pulling for the team because you just like the coach so much, and it's just the best time of the year. It's
yeah.
really, it's amazing that you can. I've heard that you can practice law on your computer, have your iPad set up with HBO Max hypothetically, and you could watch 3 or 4 games while you're working on a brief.
That's hypothetical. Yeah, I understand.
Hypothetical, and I'm not saying the brief's going to be any good, but in theory, I think you could do that.
I love that. I love that. Of course, I've been doing crazy stuff like that for years. I'm not a lawyer though. That's just me.
Yeah, yeah, you are crazy. That is right.
That's just
But
me. So,
but
um,
I look out your window and I see Jupiter, Florida, and I look out mine and I see a courtyard.
hey, that's why you get paid the big bucks, my friend. You
Yeah,
know,
that's it. Yeah, right.
it's like I'm about ready to dial that back, right?
Yeah, I just, I keep telling you, I can represent you. If you're paying somebody 6%, I'll take 3, and let me just hang out with you.
For as long as I've known you, you've always mentioned that. And thank the good Lord I've never needed you. Thank
Well,
goodness. I'm living a clean life, I think, or a
yeah,
boring life.
that's good for you.
Hey, Rito, it is so much fun to catch up, buddy. Thank you so much. God bless you and the family. Let's get together quicker next time.
I would love to. It's great seeing you.
All right, buddy. See you
Okay, take
soon.
care.
Bye.
All right.